Today, we're going to dive into what is, well, arguably the most magnificent chapter in the entire Bible, Psalm 119. Right there in its opening verses, we find this incredible blueprint for what it truly means to live a blessed life, a life of deep, unshakable joy. So let's explore this together.
This study comes to us from our friends at the You Need Faith in Jesus team. And really, it's designed with just one goal in mind, to help us not just understand God's Word, but to actually apply it to our everyday lives.
So let me just ask you, where do you look for true happiness? Our world offers a million different answers, right? More money, more success, new experiences. But today, we're going to look at an ancient wisdom that points to a very, very different source of lasting joy.
And that ancient path, it starts with a question. What is a blessed life? The beginning of Psalm 119 doesn't just hint at an answer. It lays it out for us with amazing clarity.
So the psalm opens with this profound declaration. Blessed are the undefiled in the way who walk in the law of the Lord. Now notice where that blessing is found. It's not in our circumstances, it's in our spiritual integrity. Being undefiled just means living a life that's aligned with God's loving design, and seeing His law not as some heavy burden, but as the actual path to flourishing.
And here we see the two paths so clearly. The world often suggests happiness is out there somewhere, in wealth, perfect circumstances, or following the latest trends. But God's Word, it points inward. It points to a happiness that's rooted in spiritual integrity and being aligned with His truth. One path offers temporary pleasure, the other, a deep and lasting joy.
Verse 2 adds another layer to this. It says, "Blessed are they that keep His testimonies, and that seek Him with the whole heart." Did you catch the two essential parts there? It's both outward and inward. We keep His testimonies with our actions, but that obedience has to come from a deep inward desire, from seeking Him with our entire being.
So what does it even mean to seek Him with our whole heart? Well, it's so much more than just agreeing with an idea. It means we actively treasure and guard His Word. It means our study is driven by this passionate hunger, not just for information, but for transformation, a deep longing to know God Himself.
You see, this wholehearted pursuit, it completely reshapes how we view God's Word. It's not just a collection of wise sayings, it's something way more profound. It's a loving command.
Verse 3 shows us the natural result of this kind of pursuit. They also do no iniquity. They walk in His ways. Now, this doesn't mean we become sinlessly perfect. Not at all. What it means is that the direction of our life changes. A person who is genuinely seeking God just won't be comfortable making a practice of sin because their deepest desire is to walk in His ways. And in verse 4, the psalmist's tone shifts. He starts speaking directly to God. Thou hast commanded us to keep Thy precepts diligently. That word commanded, it changes everything. This isn't a book of helpful suggestions. It's an authoritative word from our Creator, and it deserves our full, focused attention.
And he adds that one powerful word, diligently. This isn't a casual, half-hearted kind of obedience. To be diligent means we approach God's commands with great care, with focused effort, and with real earnestness. It makes obedience a priority, not just an afterthought. But let's be honest, knowing we should obey and being able to obey, sometimes they feel like two different things. And this brings us to a very human, very relatable part of the psalm, the prayer for direction. Just listen to the heart in this cry from verse 5. "Oh, that my ways were directed to keep Thy statutes." This is the psalmist being brutally honest. He knows what God commands, but he also knows his own weakness. This is a humble admission that he just can't do it on his own. So he turns his struggle into a prayer, asking God to do in him what he cannot do for himself. And this isn't some unique struggle. Centuries later, the Apostle Paul would write something strikingly similar over in Romans chapter 7, describing his own inner war. He delights in God's law, but he feels this pull in the other direction. This just goes to show us that the honest struggle for obedience is a universal part of the life of faith.
So what happens when that prayer is answered, when God actually directs our ways?
Well, the psalmist shows us a powerful transformation, a journey that takes us from shame to praise.
Look at the confidence in verse 6. "Then shall I not be ashamed when I have respect unto all Thy commandments." Where does shame come from? It often comes from hypocrisy, right? From compromise, from our sin being exposed. The psalmist understands that a life that respects all of God's commands, not just picking and choosing the easy ones, that kind of life leads to a clear conscience and a boldness before God.
The contrast is stark, isn't it?
A life of compromise will always lead toward shame, fear, and hypocrisy. But a life of integrity, one that's built on the foundation of God's Word, leads to confidence, freedom, and the profound peace of a clear conscience.
And the ultimate result is authentic worship. Verse 7 says, I will praise thee with uprightness of heart when I shall have learned thy righteous judgments. Genuine praise, you see, isn't just about emotion. It's the natural response of a heart that is being taught and shaped by the truth of God's Word. The more we learn of His righteousness, the more upright and sincere our praise becomes.
This brings us to the final verses of our study today, and they tie everything together in this beautiful picture of commitment and dependence.
Listen to the powerful balance in this final verse. I will keep thy statutes, O forsake me not utterly. It begins with a firm, personal resolution, I will, but it immediately pivots to a humble plea for God's help, O forsake me not. The psalmist understands that his commitment is totally powerless without God's sustaining grace.
This is the partnership of faith. We are called to work out our salvation, just like it says in Philippians, making that firm resolution to obey. But we do it knowing that it is God who is working in us, giving us both the desire and the power to do what pleases Him. Our effort is enabled and sustained entirely by His grace.
So how can we apply this? Well, it really comes down to 4 things. First, we need to read intentionally, approaching the Bible as God's authoritative word. Second, we need to pray honestly, bringing our real struggles to Him. Third, we have to obey diligently, putting what we learn into practice with focus and effort. And above all, we depend completely, making our resolution to obey while leaning entirely on His grace to make it possible. Because in the end, that's what the blessed life truly is. It isn't a destination we arrive at, but a journey. It's a journey of walking with God, guided by His Word, and empowered completely by His strength. And what an incredible invitation that is.